All right, we're live. Okay. Hey, gals, how are we?
Hey,
Good.
Nick, how's it going?
All right, so we're back for our third episode, and this one is going to be on family trauma and our healing. We have quite a lot of that, so we're going to talk about each of our healing journeys and how we have kind of gotten to the other side. Even though there's really not another side, we're still just going to talk about our healing journeys. So, Christine, Carrie, would you like to say anything to start us off, or would you like me to kind of keep this going?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to kick us off in regards to this. So, childhood trauma, it's a heavy topic, but one that we are familiar with in, many different ways. And we've all experienced this in, on different levels and different capacities and whatnot. So, I would say that trauma for me, I've done many years of therapy and all of that good stuff, and I'm completely open about it, not ashamed. I know there's some times a stigma that's tied to that, and I used to have trouble admitting I go to therapy and stuff like that, because I used to think, oh, I'm that means I'm crazy and all of that, and that's simply not the case. So my journey it's ongoing, and I think trauma can be, like I said before, all different, there's all different forms of trauma. So obviously growing up, losing a mother to suicide by suicide, is terrible in many different ways. No matter how you look at it, it's a terrible tragedy. And so, leading up to that, of course, it wasn't easy watching your mom, go through some of the things that she had gone through, meaning, trying to process her emotions through the depression and all of that. And like we talked about on our first episode, it was really that I noticed just, I would say 6 months to a year prior to her suicide was when she changed a little bit. And when I noticed that she was, more detached
Yeah.
and withdrawn from us a little bit more so then, because she was always involved and stuff like that. Anyway, so naturally when somebody takes their life, especially a mom of 7 kids who was so heavily involved, and just that Friday, she passed away on a Wednesday, that Friday was my field day, which she volunteered to be a part of. She was always involved in school functions and all of that. And so she was going to be volunteering for field day that day. And obviously, she wasn't there for that. So I felt, this sense of abandonment and this has carried, with me through from the time I was 14 when she passed away until, I'm 36 now, and I still struggle with some abandonment issues and stuff like that. But through all of this and, my trauma, there's many forms, like I said, and I'll let my other sisters talk on theirs, and there's more to it. But I have, worked on healing myself within. And just as of recently, I would say, last July, I invested in a program that, it's a coaching program that would really, it really just completely changed, my mindset and all of that. And kind of, how I look at, trauma, how I look at, my life growing up, and what used to be, just like, it's daunting to think back on, some at times, but through this experience and working through, some of this trauma, I've really been able to heal through, it sounds crazy, but like eating the right foods, taking care of my health by working out, walking, all of that. So that's just a little bit of my experience, with trauma and the healing journey. And of course I'll expand further, but I would like to pass this on and kind of let Carrie speak on hers.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that's really interesting that I thought of as you were talking was, and you guys probably get the same comment, but throughout, ever since mom passed away and people that have known about her death and, and they see us and they're like, gosh, I'm just so surprised not that we're doing amazing, but that we're just normal and living. We all have families and, living a very normal life, and people can't believe that, I guess we are the way we are. And it's like all of us, we've overcome a lot of things, like Nikki, with the alcohol and stuff like that. And I think it's just, it almost makes me think about, I think there is, like what you said, Christine, like a stigma behind, some people are against like therapy, or they can't, especially like men, they're hesitant to like talk to people. And I'm like, I really think that we are the way that we are because we were forced to work through it. Like if we didn't, I mean, I remember obviously as soon as mom passed away, like we were immediately put into therapy, and Lily was doing, she was young, she was doing art therapy. And I really attribute that to where we are today. The fact that we're able to talk so openly about our feelings and express them. And I don't know about you or Nikki in your relationships, but it's helped me in my marriage. And it makes me think like, gosh, I can't believe that people don't have or even want to, and I'm no judgment, but it's been so beneficial in my life to have, go through therapy or, all of these other resources. But I think we all handle trauma differently. And I think everybody goes through varying degrees of trauma, and it's not to say one is harder than the other, but, I specifically handled it probably differently than my sisters did. And I'm naturally a very, introverted person. It's taken me a while, even at my age now, where I still have a hard time expressing my feelings. And when I was younger and after my mom's passing, I really just started to, and this is taking a lot for me to admit, but I started to become like obsessive in certain areas of my life. And I was only 13. So when I say that I had an eating disorder, it didn't start like that, because I felt like my life around me was so out of control that the food intake was the one thing that I could control. And I don't know where that stemmed from. I don't know if I saw something on TV or where I even learned that, but I was controlling life by, and help me out here if I'm struggling trying to talk about this, but like I was controlling my life through my eating disorder. That I felt
that's so common, Carrie.
Yeah. And so that was, at the time, even though I was in therapy, that was like at the time where I just felt like, or a time in my life where I just felt like this is trauma. Like this is my outlet for this trauma that I'm experiencing and feeling. And it's funny because at 13, when I say an eating disorder, it didn't start that way. It was more of a control OCD type of thing. And then it turned into that because people were making comments about the way I looked. And so it just got worse and worse from there. But that's a completely other topic. But I think it's just so interesting that you have, all of us girls that went through the same thing essentially in life, but handled it so differently. And it just goes to show you just like everybody's different experiences and the way that, they handle them. And I'm just so thankful that I was given the tools to be able to handle it, because that wasn't the way for me. Obviously, it's not the way for anybody. Nothing good came out of that for me. So through therapy and really working through this trauma and healing, I was really given the tools to properly process. I always feel like I never make sense on these things.
You really do.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I have questions for you, but I want Nikki and then I want to get back to what you were talking about.
So I feel like, there's like so much I could say on this topic. I know you guys are surprised, but first of all, I want to try to be more natural, because I feel like I get really, when I talk, I just kind of am going to think of it like I'm just talking to you two.
That's how I had to think of it in order to say what I just said. Because if people are going to see this, I want to just go. Up.
And I want people too who know us to really be like, and people who don't know us to really kind of know our dynamic. And a lot of our dynamic is actually very fun and humorous.
Yeah, that is true.
I'm going to try to bring some of that into this. But so for me, one thing that I think about with trauma is there's this book called, and I was talking to you two about this earlier, but there's this book called The Body Keeps the Score. And when I got sober, I started reading more up on trauma, because my psychiatrist, his like life's work is around trauma in the body, basically. And I didn't realize like how much stored experiences, or like experiences that we've had, how much it stores in our body. And I don't think it's any coincidence that like on some level we've all kind of had issues with our bodies. Like there's always been like, I feel like our bodies have always been a topic. And so um and it's especially common with, young girls obviously losing a mom at the age that we did. And so yeah, so for me, find it so fascinating that all of us responded in such different ways. Like some of
Yeah.
us were more similar than others, but others were not. Like I think back on Christine and I feel like you wanted to do so right. And I talked about this with like Mike too. Like when you're the oldest, like you want to do right, like you want to be good. Where for me, I was like, F this. Like I saw what being good, where it got me. And I was like, it's more fun to act out. So I'm going to do that instead. So it's like, whatever, that makes me feel better. And so for me, I would have to say that I acted out more with alcohol specifically. And, partying and stuff like that. Like that was I remember the first time I tried alcohol and I think I was like 12 or 13. And it was the first time where I really felt like I could just like escape. Like I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. I feel so good. I feel so confident. Like I feel just not in my body. And as a kid, I don't know if you guys remember
It's
this,
so
but
young too. Like,
Yeah.
what grade are you even in 12?
so young. I was in
That like sixth
7th
grade?
grade. I was in 7th grade. I mean, it's crazy. Um, and it's weird because dad watched me like a hawk. Once he realized that I was a partier, then he watched me like a hawk. But up until that point, I'd kind of been a goody two shoes.
Mhm.
And I remember like thinking that if I was just really good, like we would have a quote unquote normal life. So I would have a mom, like dad would get remarried, and then I'd have a mom again. And
Mhm.
then if I just please them enough, then everything would be okay. And
Yeah.
then when things happened and it, somebody was in and out of the picture, it was like, well, this sucks. This hurts so bad.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to find another way to escape. And then the other way to escape was alcohol. So alcohol for me was like a huge trauma response. And then it wasn't until I got sober to where and the guy who like the psychiatrist whose life's work has been around trauma, he literally said to me point blank, I can't work with you if you don't get sober. And so when I got sober, it was like I was back to a 13-year-old girl because my growth had like stunted. And in this book, he kind of writes about that. And he writes about how like certain diseases surface when we have dealt with certain types of trauma. So like, have you guys ever heard of the ACEs quiz?
No.
Okay, so it's this quiz that it actually got pretty big in California. They made it like mandatory or something, and they focus more in little kids. And what people don't know about trauma is like it's quote unquote like the leading cause of death, like more than heart disease, because these diseases that actually stem from trauma are wiping out people more than like heart diseases. And you can look this up. It's wild. I didn't even think that existed.
Mhm.
But the ACEs quiz, like you take this quiz and it asks you questions like, were you molested as a child? Did you lose a parent to suicide? Did you grow up with a parent in alcoholism? And then it says that like you're more prone to heart disease or alcoholism or depression. And it's so fascinating because all of the things that it says I was prone to, I have, but like they were like, here are things you can do to get better. And so for me, like now I'm a recovering alcoholic and now I have like my depression, my anxiety under control and stuff like that. So I just think that part's really fascinating. But yeah, I mean, I just think I really acted out with booze. And
Right.
then when I got sober, things changed, but I had to feel my feelings, which was really hard. And I had to go through therapy in order to properly feel my feelings. And like ways that I did that is like through this thing called brain spotting. And I think it's important to bring awareness to stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
basically where my therapist would take this like long, like metal rod looking thing. It almost looks like an antenna on the top of a car.
Mhm.
And she would do this. And like when I'd have to follow it. And when one part of my eye would like hit it, it would trigger something. It was the weirdest feeling. And then I would have to kind of explain what I was feeling. And then another thing is EMDR, where you basically go back to the traumatic situation and you like live through it as an adult. So you like heal it by being back in it.
Mm.
That took me
That's what I
years.
struggle
Me
with.
too.
Yeah, because I
too.
don't I do not recall.
But
Like,
Carrie,
I
that's
don't-
so
so
normal because you disassociated. So
Yeah, I
did
don't
I though.
remember like my childhood. I feel
So
like.
that's actually, it's, if you look that up, that is a trauma response. It's because it was so traumatic.
Yeah.
It, you know, you weren't processing it in the
Or you
moment.
think it was
So
a
now it's like,
dream.
Yeah. Right. I
Mhm.
feel like I don't remember. Like.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's because, again, it was so traumatic that
Right.
you probably checked out and
Yeah.
like it doesn't, it's
Or
not.
guys, like if you think of, not to speak for her, Debbie remembers everything.
So do
Like
I.
you
Yeah,
do too.
Christine too.
I do
I
too.
And
know.
I don't think it's a coincidence this. Debbie remembers everything. You remember everything. You both had explosive reactions growing up, which
Yeah.
I don't think is odd because if you think back on it, it's like, well, of course they did. And Carrie, I actually talked about this with my therapist. Do you remember when we found out when mom died at Ma and Pa's? Carrie and I had the same reaction. Debbie and Christine had the same reaction.
Do you remember? No, I did not have the
I
same
just
reaction
remember-
as Debbie. I'll tell you what.
I just
mine was.
remember being surrounded by all the aunts and uncles. That's it.
So Debbie instantly started to throw up. I certainly didn't do that.
You did.
Yeah, she started to throw up. She like was
I don't remember any
screaming
of
and
this.
then went to the bathroom and started to throw up. I was on the couch, and Mike was right next to me, and I literally just remember looking at Ma and Pa's glass table. It had those glass
Me
checkers.
too.
And I looked at it and I was like, no, no, no. And then Mike just grabbed me, hugged me, and was kissing me on the cheek. And then I went to find Debbie.
Oh my God, Christine,
Yeah.
see, I think that I remembered it and I didn't. Where Carrie, in my head, you grabbed me, which is
Did I really?
you grabbed me. So
Okay.
you were on the armchair of the couch and I was sitting right next to you. And the second we found out, which is, if you think about our relationships now, I'm like, this is
I know.
always protecting of
That's
you.
so
Yeah.
crazy. You were
I'd
always
love to
protecting me.
I'd love to hear about like
I
what
know, I wish
your-
Debbie was here.
what your experience was finding out. Like, I want to tell you guys what I remember. Then I'm
Can I
interested
just
to hear
finish this
what-
one part, teen?
Yeah. I cut you off. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. So I literally, Carrie was on the armchair and I was
Oh.
sitting down next to her and Dad said it. And I still remember Dad's face and he said it and he had his tie on and it was whatever.
Yeah.
And then Carrie reached for me. Carrie and I were both mute. I was staring at that glass table
Yeah.
and I just spaced out. And Carrie whispered in my ear and she said, you called me something, Carrie, and I can't remember what you called me. I don't know if you said Nick, but you called me a nickname, I think. And you go, it's okay, in my ear. And then you grabbed my shoulder. And I remember instantly feeling like protected.
Yeah.
And in that, I know it makes me emotional. And in that moment, I think about my entire life, how I have looked to you guys to be my protectors to a fault. Where like, Christine, I think about how you reacted when I had Layla. And it makes so much more sense to me now because you, I think, instinctively knew.
How did I react?
You were.
I know, but I'm saying, you know, for
Oh,
our
yeah.
listeners
You
to
were
understand.
very abrasive.
I'm like,
And you were,
Yeah, it's like,
you were very abrasive and you were really hard on me when
Yeah.
I had Layla. And you were like, get your shit together kind of thing. Where I was like, oh my God, because I think you knew I always relied on you guys.
mhm.
And when Carrie came around and it was the same thing she did with Mom, she was very much like, Nick, it's fine. You're good. It's all good. Like you just like would do these, like Christine was always kind of in my head. Christine was always like the tough one. Like if she said this, I did that. Do you know what I mean? Like if she was like, you were like kind of the leader to me.
Yeah.
Carrie was the one that was like
The nurturer and yeah.
like where I was like, Carrie, how am I going to do this? Like, Carrie, and Carrie, to this day, I ask you, do you think I'm going to be successful? Because I go to you to be like, Carrie, can
Like,
you,
I'm not even that successful.
right? No.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Carrie, I need you to validate me because you guys have all been moms to me. That's what's crazy. You guys
Yeah.
have all been moms to me in your own way. And Debbie was the pillar. Debbie was like, it's interesting because I think the way Carrie looks at Christine is how I look at Debbie. Like
Yeah.
Debbie is very much the, like, what she says goes. If she says it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. Like we made these jokes about how I found out I was pregnant with Layla, and she's like, Nikki, truly, what would you do if you found out you were
Hey,
having
Nick, real quick, just don't forget we have to get a word in at some point.
100%. I
Just
won't forget. I'm done after this, and I was thinking
everybody's,
I give you my word, but please just let me say this one part.
Yes.
Debbie, literally,
If you said we're being ourselves, I just want to.
yeah, I'm really glad you did that.
Yeah.
No, Debbie freaking said to me, she goes, what would you do if you found out you were having twins? And I'd be like, oh, I would just move into your house. Like I would just move in and you would take care of me.
Right.
Like that in my head. It's like you would take care of me. Like that's just what, but I mean, it's just crazy. So I'm done.
No, Nikki,
No,
that was
I
really
think that
good.
was great.
Honestly, it really was.
I was really just
It's so
myself.
hard for me because
It's a hard topic for me too, and I'll be honest because Nikki, you've done so much work.
Yeah.
Not that I haven't. I'll be
Oh, that's
honest with everybody here that the second I get to with therapy, like the second they want to get to like the real deep stuff, which we haven't even, a lot of this stuff is so personal that I'm not like there to, tell the world. But in therapy, that's where I start to like, ooh, it's like, I don't.
Christine,
like,
that's what I did.
back up. And, and when I do that, it's when I start to dig it up and everything is when I make, some really good positive changes. But it's a hard topic for me because, you really have to look at stuff. And I want to be, completely transparent. I had an amazing childhood. And then I also had, some really not awesome times. And what I mean by that is like, before mom passed away, like I don't remember anything being, turmoil or anything like that. It was really just an awesome childhood and like really
where
great.
I remember like mostly turmoil. I remember mostly turmoil.
You were so young.
Yeah.
Because you were so young when mom passed away. But where I was going with this was like, for me, my role and like our father, who's incredible. He's, although not from Sicily, he has those like old school, like Sicilian values, and me being like the oldest daughter and everything, it was always drilled into my head, like step up, and it wasn't like him, this wasn't a fault to him because that's literally just like the culture and he's still that way.
Really
and that's just how it is.
Because you're the oldest daughter.
I'm the oldest daughter.
Yeah.
He's my dad. Like I have 4 younger sisters. It's kind of, my responsibility. And so growing up, like that was extremely challenging for me because, like looking back on it, I feel like you're screaming. Sorry. My husband's like partially deaf, so I scream a lot.
She's literally
sorry. And he actually wears hearing aids, so
You literally see you can't hear shit. Yeah.
My left ear's ringing.
yeah. Just
There you go. You're screaming.
kind of.
I had to tell it was enough.
Yeah. So, where was I, Care?
I'm sorry.
No, really, where was I?
Oh shoot.
Oh shit, Christine.
Oh yeah, no, my
Okay.
childhood. And so, being told to be responsible for the girls and, really, I had at UConn XL, I had to drive them, to their practices, all these things. It's not necessarily like my sister, Debbie, there's been times where she's like, you always talk about how you raised us and all that. It's not like I'm like, yeah, I really wanted to do it. It was like, no, I just like, we didn't have a choice. I had like made do it.
But you guys, it was the hardest on you. Sorry.
Gosh, oh my.
Well, she can be.
All right,
guys
you're
can
right.
Converse.
I
You don't have to
I
talk.
know, God bless me.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, I think about this and I've talked to Mike a lot about this. You guys, I said this to him. I was like, I had the luxury of being able to act out. You guys really didn't. Like, you really, and you guys,
Nikki, we acted out.
I
And I was
know.
getting to that. Yeah. we started
Listen, you did. But I'm saying to the level of what I did, I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
was 1,000,000 times worse than you.
that's true.
And
We were
Dad,
the first girls. So it
Dad was
like,
hard on me, but he was way harder on you guys. Like, I still kind of got to do shit where like you guys were like,
We
I
couldn't
mean,
get away with it. Even if we
Oh.
did have a wild night, we always got it. It's like we
it's
were
no matter
always-
what. It was always Carrie and I had to stick together though, because
Yeah.
like we just had to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we
which I was
because-
always jealous of that.
yeah, and it was really hard for me because this is something I've had to even work on. My God, Carrie, it was going on even into your when you started dating your now husband. I was
yeah.
so I had this role of like, my dad made me feel like I had to protect Carrie. I was the oldest one. I'm at 1 year and 6 days, 5 days older than her. I was the older one. So if we went out and anything happened with her, it was my fault because I'm supposed to be the example. Like, and it was literally drilled into me. Like, I would always check up on her in college. Like, she was in college, I was, but like, I don't even think she knows this. Like, I would call around and make sure she was like, okay and stuff. And like, just check in and,
Except that I tried my first cigarette with Christine. She was so protective. And I threw up all of myself. Do you remember that?
yes.
I took one drag and I was lit.
Didn't we?
Did you guys ever hear about Debbie taking me to Club 15 and I was about 16 years old? No, I think I was 15. Dad caught us.
Dad caught us.
I swear. I don't know.
How did we always get caught by Dad?
Something.
He
No,
had spies.
he
I
had-
mean,
There was
spies.
some
He
spies
had
and
spies.
shit.
He
He
had-
showed up
For
on
sure.
Mardi
He
Gras. He found me in a porta potty. I mean, no matter where. I mean, it was
guys,
everywhere.
he had like a mother's intuition. It was insane. He would call me
I mean,
sometimes.
there was no way.
There was no intuition.
But I mean, if I were him nowadays, are you kidding? If I had 5 daughters and
Oh,
running around
yeah.
St. Louis, I'd be
Oh.
calling up, everybody
Yeah.
to keep an eye out on us. I mean, we were running wild. Like, Carrie, I've just got to be honest. Like, now that we talked about all the trauma, but like, finally, when I was like a junior or senior, I was like, God, I got to live a little bit, And like, but like, there were some times where, I mean, waking up outside Lily's door, and I was
honestly,
like, really,
I feel like I feel like now that I'm a parent, I almost think that did me a disservice with how, and Dad,
Strict.
he didn't
Too
know, and
strict.
he was phenomenal. But I mean, I let loose in college.
Oh,
Carrie, you went wild.
I was like,
Oh,
wait, there's
yeah.
nobody around.
No,
Like,
it
this
wasn't
is
good.
insane.
It
I
wasn't good.
Guys,
didn't have any rules or any responsibilities.
Yeah. So
No
Dad
rules.
was strict on me in high school, but I still did a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's
block
gonna
him.
hate. We've got to block Dad.
We got to, yeah, no. He was strict on me in high school, but then like I won most grounded on my senior superlative. They literally made it up for me. No, guys, I was grounded every day of my life. Courtney Brooks is going to comment on this and say she still has PTSD. How about calling our phones and it would go, you have dialed the wrong.
He
or
would
the
shut our phones
incorrect
off.
key."
He would shut
He
our
turned our
phones off.
phones
How
off.
about
He
when
would
he
just-
thought you weren't going to basketball tryouts? This is a really good one. He thought Carrie wasn't.
Wait,
Mike
can I
and
just preface? I literally played every sport year round. It's not like I was nonstop with sports.
No,
yeah.
So it
All of
wasn't
us
like
were.
I was. I know, but
Oh,
it wasn't
yeah.
like I was being lazy, not doing activities. So this is why
Right.
it's so alarming.
But he knew basketball kind of wasn't our thing. Out of all the sports,
I just hated basketball.
yeah. Ugh.
Like I already did enough sports.
Yeah. And so he was like, you get your sister to tryouts to Mike and I. And so we drop her off at Ursuline, and the Kirkwood house was, our house was 5 miles. I don't know. You could walk. And as we're pulling out, Mike and I are going to take a left turn out of the school, and we slam on our brakes, and this man on a two tandem bike falls, wipes out tractors. Oh God, I live in the
We
country.
live in the country.
Tires go out from underneath him. We look down, Mike and I, is that fucking Dad? And it was Dad. And he was literally, Nikki, we were this close to hitting him. He gets up, he goes, did Carrie get to practice or did it get to tryouts? We're like, oh God, we got to get this man. He's like so terrified he's going to lose control of us. Like, and I do have to give him credits too, though. Looking back, I have 3 kids. the man.
Oh,
He really was tremendous, though. Like keeping us in line. How could
he was tremendous.
Like,
He was
I mean,
tremendous.
he really
seriously.
Guys, I would have been a full-blown drug addict had he not done the things he did. I mean, I'm just being
No,
honest.
really, honest to
Yeah.
God,
I
if he
would have
didn't,
been.
it would have been. And I mean, how about when he
And
would get in
keeping us
trouble, he'd
close,
call the
too.
troops in.
yeah.
I had a drunken night, and next thing I know, there's Paul, Uncle Jim, and everybody in my kitchen ready
Yeah.
to.
Guys, it does go to show when you have a family support system like that, how big of a deal it is. Because I remember even looking at other girls growing up that didn't have the same family support. Like her parents wouldn't care if they stayed out all night.
Yeah.
And they were always the one that went a little too far. Where
Not
like
always. I mean,
not always. You're right. You're
Yeah.
right. I shouldn't say that, but I'm saying I feel like in college I didn't try some things that I could have tried because I did have dad's voice in my head.
same.
Where and not to say I was, innocent, but I could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
I could have gotten pregnant in college,
Instead of right out of college.
Were you in college?
Or wait,
out
were
of-
you in
Were
college?
you in college?
I found out I was pregnant my senior year in August.
Of
Okay,
college.
but then you still graduated.
Yeah, with a freaking 4.0.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, actually, I think it was a 3.5, but
Either way, that's still incredible.
yeah, I mean,
I know we're talking about trauma and stuff. And we haven't really, but I do want to say the thing that I remember when I look back on our childhood and when we say all this trauma and stuff, we'll get into that some other time about all the personal stuff. I'm not really, but what was hard for me is like, because of, our family in St. Louis being, successful in business and stuff like that. St. Louis, it's basically like having a big name in a small town. It's like,
Right.
when our mom passed away, it was on the news. And like, people, my friend, I remember texting me on AOL Instant Messenger saying, "Is everything okay with your mom?" I'm like, what? People knew that she passed away before I did. And then the rumors that were going around, because at that time, 2001, suicide, and then especially a lady in a predominant family, 7 children, Catholic, went to church, beautiful church every Sunday, goes to adoration, goes and prays every day, living that where you see from the outside, like just a perfect,
always
it
smiling.
really was. I mean, her life was great. It's just
Right.
on the inner, you don't know what's going on, and her trauma growing up and all of that. What I'm saying is like all of that. And then hearing like your mom was nuts. Oh, she must've been crazy to, do that to herself, or how could she
People were terrible.
kids and, all this stuff. And it's like, as a 15-year-old girl going into high school and hearing all these things, and you're just like, my God, it's so hard. And then living up to the expectations of, just being a good girl, a good Catholic girl, waiting till you're married, doing, it was just like, it was so much. And then, personal stuff that happened to us, as kids and all that. It's been a lot to process, and it's been a lot, and really truthfully, it's carried into, I've been married before. I'm married a second time. And like, it's taken me 36 years to realize like, first of all, I hope to be married for the rest of my life. But you know what? Like I used to judge people. Oh my God, she's been divorced twice. She must be this or that or whatever else. It's like, you know what? We have no idea what people are going through at the end of the day, like, and what their life was and how they internalize things. But I will say that like a lot of what I internalized young and like didn't process I've had to work through as I got older. I've learned that I didn't really properly learn how to like communicate. My communication has always been when I'm angry, I scream and yell. When I'm sad, I cry. When I'm mad, I cry. When I'm, just it's my emotions. Like I've never really learned how to, and that's something that, and I'm just being honest about it because that's how important it is to like process things from adolescence to adulthood, because it really does, carry into that. And if you don't process those things and you don't work on those things, not like you're going to pay for it, but really, I mean, at the end of the day,
you do kind of pay for it. Like it sneaks up on you. And if you see people who struggle with like alcoholism later in life or struggle
Yeah.
with addiction, or whatever it is, or like they have a quote unquote perfect life and then they, you know, wind up stealing a bunch of money or cheating, or it's just like
Right.
you see it all the time. And I think for me, like I feel like being in a 12-step program though, and I'm sorry I bring this up all the time,
Why
but
are
I'm
you sorry?
saying,
No, it's your story.
Yeah.
yeah, being in a program, you see people in so many different walks of life that like you would look at as on the outside world of like, oh, well, that person's perfect, or like they have all this money, or they have this, or whatever it is. And it's like, oh, that's the opposite. And usually, I don't know. And I did want to say one other thing. When we were talking about therapy earlier, I think that really something that's a shame for like our country in general is that people really don't have access to therapy. Like a lot of people don't have access, whether it's like because of healthcare, what usually it's because of healthcare, they don't have access to it. And I think that's where like,
Yeah, that's actually true because I made a comment like it's kind of ignorant.
yeah, no, but
I can't believe people don't,
I know.
take advantage of
totally.
therapy. It's like, well,
But like, guys, if you think
It's
about it, like I think about this with me all the time, like the way I got pregnant, the age that I got pregnant, and I have a great job. I have a great life. I'm happy. I live in a great home. Like, had I not been born into what I'd been born into, like, let's say I was born in, North City, things could look a lot different for me. And so I think it's just like acknowledging that we do come from a place of like, we are so blessed that
we're very privileged, and
yeah, that we had like the resources that we did, and we had a dad that was willing to give them to us.
and that I know, Nikki, and it says a lot there because, my husband being in the union and stuff, and the insurance Carrie knows is phenomenal, and I haven't
Yeah.
had to worry about that. But I will speak on this because when I was going through my first divorce, like I'm on my second marriage, but I was
Right. Yeah.
divorced.
You're divorced. Right.
Got it. And I was like, I've got to talk to somebody, and didn't have insurance. It was just terrible. And I found this place though that through a lot of research, it's called Centennial Counseling Center for anybody that wants to know. It's here in Illinois. And you can work with the intern counselors. They're going to get their master's in counseling or their PhD, and they offer free services or honor system, whatever you can pay. So I literally paid $5 a week to go to therapy. And because I couldn't afford anything else, I was waitressing, and I didn't have enough money to, go anywhere else. And honestly, it was great. And so there are resources out there. You just have to really look, but we are extremely fortunate to, have what we have. But I will say there was a time where I didn't have insurance, and I didn't, but I knew like, okay, I have got to process this because I'm not well.
Totally.
So, I do know that there's resources out there, and I'll try to, if anybody's interested though, and they're like, I don't even know where to start, I'd be more than happy to help, and, just share a comment below or whatever the case may be. And we can see if there's something out there that,
right.
Some resource for counseling that's affordable for those that, aren't as blessed as we are.
Yeah.
So.
Probably my favorite part about this is the fact that we can all like talk about this stuff and break barriers in the sense of like what we believe to be true. And I think this like allows such a space of healing for all of us to be able to talk about all of our own experiences and be like, oh, wait, that's actually what happened. Or like, Carrie,
Right.
I'm really close with you, and I've never told you that about Mom. You know what I mean? And I probably never would have. So I just think it's cool to be able to identify that with each other. And I'm really thankful for you guys.
I'm really thankful for you guys too. And, I mean, there's so much more we can talk about on this topic. So I'm sure, there will be another episode where we can expand, but I really enjoyed, chatting with my gals.
I know.
So, yeah.
Judy, do you have anything to say?
I don't think so. I just feel kind of ignorant about the comment I made earlier. I just was
Really?
like, I can't believe people don't take advantage of therapy because it's been so beneficial to me.
Yeah.
But
it's fine.
Not everybody has like resources and stuff. So I just
but there are people out there who do have the resources and don't want to do it because whatever reason. So
I,
that's true.
I love what you said here, because sometimes, and I was literally sitting here thinking like, I'm feeling insecure because like we are so blessed and we are so privileged. And like, I don't want anybody that don't have those resources to feel like, oh, these snobs or these like,
Totally.
like I mean, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I was just feeling a little bit insecure too. And I just didn't, you're not alone in that. But like, I think that while we have been extremely blessed and we do have, we've had the resources, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
It doesn't mean, Christine, just because we have the resource. No, I love what you guys
Yeah.
are saying. And I think just because we have the resources doesn't necessarily mean that we have things in our lives that haven't affected us. And I think a lot of people will identify with where we are. And I think sometimes people get scared to speak out on certain things because of how they're perceived. But we're choosing to push through that because this is way too important of a topic to not talk about. Like, this is something people and women should be talking about. And the three of us doing this together, and including Debbie in the future, obviously, it's like how much healing that would offer for us and hopefully for other people to watch this. Because we haven't always gotten along. Things have been really tough.
Yeah.
And all of our, even now,
Even
right?
now. Yeah.
Frick, me and Carrie last episode, she wanted to rip my head off.
If you go back and listen to that one, you'll hear Nikki.
I was in tears 2 minutes before that, feeling bad for myself.
All right. Well, I am excited already for the next episode.
And Debbie will be on the next one.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's got those little twinners that needed her today. But yes, thanks for listening in. If you guys, have any comments or anything, please let us know. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Pretty soon we have some exciting things coming. Website is in the works. We'll be streaming on all the major podcast channels like Spotify and iTunes and all that good stuff. So
guest stars.
Everything is in the works, and we have special guests that are on their way, and it's really going to be some good stuff. So stay tuned and love you, Nick.
Love you guys.
See you on the next one.
All right.
Okay,
Love
see
you
ya.
guys.
Love
Okay,
you.
All righty. I'm recording.
How do you